sound wonderful. We're so grateful for the music this morning. We've been in Luke for a number of weeks, but I'd like to look at a passage this morning that is familiar to everybody from Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 24. And here begins the reading. Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me.' So he divided up his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate." We ask God's blessing upon the reading of his word. Back in January of 1978, there was a 25-year-old guy who moved here to Nashville from New York City to write songs. Originally from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, he first attended school at Drexel and then at Penn State, and then he moved to Manhattan to cut his teeth in the music industry. While at Penn State, he fell in love with a beautiful young woman, and he married that special woman 9 months later in September of 1978 after moving here to town. The couple was blessed with a daughter in November of 1979 and then 2 more sons after that. They first came to Woodmont in 1979, and they have been a vital part of this congregation ever since that time. In case you haven't figured out who I'm talking about Tom Schuyler. Tom's songwriting career took off fairly quickly. He was able to use his intelligence, his drive, his passion for music, his creativity, risk, and some of his own personal pain to compose songs like "Love Will Turn You Around" by Kenny Rogers, "I Fell in Love Again Last Night" by the Forrester Sisters, "Long Line of Love" by Michael Martin Murphey, and "16th Avenue" by Lacey J. Dalton, a song that was later named the official anthem of Music Row here in Nashville. He also went on to run the Nashville division of RCA for a number of years, signing artists like Kenny Chesney and Lone Star, Mindy McCready, Sarah Evans, and worked with a bunch of other artists as well. He served as president of the Country Music Association and president of the Nashville Songwriters Association, and just a few years ago, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Yet, in the midst of all of this, he has found the time over the past 30 years to share his faith and his talent with this church, and Woodmont has been the blessed beneficiary of his wonderful music. He has inspired and influenced countless lives, many of the youth that have grown up that are here before you and others that are not here this morning. And he's been a walking example of what it means to use your talent to love others and to serve God. For many of the youth who have grown up at Woodmont and moved on to the next stages of their life, the songs that Tom has composed have served as anchors of their faith, reminding them of a church where they have been loved, shaped, molded, encouraged, and a place where they can always return home no matter what. Our scripture this morning is familiar, and I also think it's very fitting, the parable of the prodigal son. A few years ago, I encountered a book written by Henry Nouwen that really had a profound impact on my own understanding of this text. The book is titled The Return of the Prodigal Son. And in that book, Nouwen challenges us to think about how we can relate to the different characters of this parable. First of all, do we see ourselves as the prodigal? The one who asks for his inheritance early, runs away from his family, and then blows all of his wealth in a foreign land. I think the prodigal can represent anybody who makes a decision to turn away from God, away from faith out of selfish ambition and the belief that there is something bigger and better and more fulfilling out there. The belief that something other than God can fill our restlessness in life. He also represents anybody who tries to distance themselves from their family or their past because they are delusional in thinking that life is always going to be easy and rewarding somewhere else. Usually the decision to leave home comes from anger, hurt, loss, resentment, jealousy, revenge, lust, greed, and a whole other set of emotions. And usually this decision causes a lot of pain and hurt for the other family members who have been left behind. The prodigal could represent any of us when we feel like we've had enough with our jobs or our marriages or our responsibilities, our relationships, and we think that if we can just run away in life, if we can leave, then everything will get better. But usually what we find is that when we change locations or change our situation, the grass is not always greener, and our problems seem to follow us. And we still find ourselves having to deal with the same issues, only in a new context. Can we relate to the elder son in this parable? The one who gets angry and jealous when the father has a party for his brother who has returned. Don't we feel like that sometimes? This could be anybody who is overly pious or judgmental. Anybody who thinks that they are righteous and perfect without fault or flaw. In today's world, I would say that the elder son can represent Christians who think that their approach to the faith is the only one and that everybody else is wrong. You see, the younger son gets lost in a distant country, but the older son seems to be lost at home. Nouwen says his lostness is characterized by judgment and condemnation, by anger and resentment, bitterness and jealousy, all of which is so pernicious and so damaging to the human heart. He is a proud, unkind, and selfish person who has hidden his feelings for way too long, and then all of a sudden those feelings come bursting out when the younger son returns. And if we are honest, many of us can be like this. We're good people, we do what's expected of us, we plug away and we work hard, yet we also whine and grumble and complain about everything along the way. We suppress our feelings, and then when somebody else receives a blessing, when somebody else catches a break in life, we can't be happy for them because our heart is so full of malice and envy and jealousy. See, jealousy and envy can keep us from experiencing joy. And the older son in this parable represents those who are blind to the blessings that they have because all they are thinking about is what they want. The older son reminds us that greed and jealousy is probably the number one joy killer in a materialistic society. And what about the father? See, for many years I looked at this parable and just understood the father as representing God. And God cares deeply for both of his sons, the one who is left with the inheritance and the one who has stayed loyal. The father's willing to forgive the sins of the past and welcome his son back with open arms. He's willing to look past the fact that at one point the son wanted absolutely nothing to do with him, yet he forgives him out of love and compassion. The God that we believe in as Christians is just like this father. He's the God of unconditional love. A God that gives us a second chance and a third chance and as many chances as we might need in life. But Henry Nouwen throws a twist on this parable at the end of his book. Now we gained a much deeper appreciation of the role of the Father in this parable. It's perfectly okay to think of the Father as representing God. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's probably the most common and logical interpretation. But have we ever thought about the possibility that perhaps we are being called to play the role of the Father, to forgive and to show compassion, to love and to welcome? Now it says, do I want to be not just the one who is being forgiven, but also the one who forgives? Not just the one who is being welcomed home, but also the one who welcomes home. Not just the one who receives compassion, but the one who offers it as well. He talks about how earthly life, as we know, is full of competition, full of people trying to beat each other out, trying to get ahead of each other. The world is full of rivalry and resentment, jealousy and envy, just like we see in these two brothers. Now it says, when I consider the immense waywardness of God's children, our lust, our greed, our violence, our anger, our resentment, and when I look at them through the eyes of God's heart, I cannot help but weep and cry out in grief. But God's forgiveness is unconditional. It comes from a heart that does not demand anything for itself, a heart that is completely empty of self-seeking. It's this divine forgiveness that I have to practice in my daily life. Perhaps coming home to God happens through music on days like this. These songs that Tom has composed over the past 30 years have brought countless people back to their faith in the midst of difficult circumstances. These songs have anchored the faith of many young people in this church. Perhaps we need to learn to treat others the way that the Father treats both of his sons, with love and compassion, with kindness and mercy, with open arms and acceptance no matter what life might bring. And remember the great thing about faith is that you can always come home.
Hold me up, and I shall be safe, and I shall observe your statutes continually.
You're my shield and my hiding place, my shield and my hiding place. Hold me up, that I may be safe. Hold me up, hold me up, hold me up, hold me up. In your word I have hope and faith. Your word is my hope and faith. Hold me up, that I may be safe. Hold me up, hold me up, hold me up, hold me up, hold me up.
For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone.
Will find trouble, girl, out in the street.
Hear my cry, O God, attend to my prayer. From the end of the earth I will cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I.
Wash me and I will be whiter than snow. Father, wherever I go, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Let your tender mercies be known. Fill me with the song of salvation, and I will go dancing with these broken bones. Let every word from my mouth and every thought that collects in my heart be worthy of how great thou art. Lead me to the rock that is higher